Hi, I'm Admiral, and in this video, I'll be trying to beat Pokémon Black with just one Hydreigon. The rules for this run are pretty straightforward. First, I can only use Hydreigon in battle. I'll be snagging other Pokémon for HMs, but they won't be making an appearance otherwise. The second and final rule is that this challenge begins when I get my starter and ends when I enter the Hall of Fame. Any post-game content is available for funsies, but doesn't actually matter. When it comes to the Unova games, there are only two things I know for sure. Everyone loves N, and Black 2 and White 2 are apparently considered contenders for the best Pokémon games. I won't be able to prove that second point, since it doesn't make too much sense to play the sequels first, but at least get to meet N. If it wasn't already apparent, the Gen 5 games are the ones I know the absolute least about. Luckily, that doesn't matter too much from a gameplay standpoint. Hidden abilities are the only mechanic that this generation introduced, which won't really affect much. To be honest, even though I've heard so many positive things about these games, they've just never really interested me that much. Heck, even Hydreigon doesn't stand out to me much at all. Honestly, I find it to be one of the lesser pseudo-legendaries. It has a very balanced stat distribution, with a slight emphasis on special attack, so there's nothing at which it's going to truly excel. However, its typing is pretty interesting to me. Guzzlord is the only other dark dragon type, so Hydreigon is a bit unique in that regard. We have a quad weakness to Fairy, but that doesn't matter until Gen 6, so we're good. Fighting is a bit scary, since it's such a common offensive type, but otherwise we should be pretty safe. Our move pool is also pretty mid, with the exception of a few standouts. By level up, we learn Crunch fairly early, and Dragon Pulse right after, but nothing else that's incredible. Our TM moveset has Earthquake, Return, and Flamethrower, but not much else of note at first glance. Even though we get some good stuff, the lack of strong utility moves like Ice Beam and Thunderbolt, or our best special stab move in Dark Pulse, really kills us. We do get Acrobatics and Fly, so that's some coverage for fighting types that may come up, but otherwise there's not much coverage built in, especially in terms of our stab moves. Hydreigon's ability, Levitate, is pretty good. It gives Hydreigon immunity to ground moves and some hazards, like Spikes and Sticky Web. That second part doesn't really matter though, since we won't actually ever switch into those. I definitely would have preferred something a bit more interesting, but this is a good utility ability. We don't get a hidden ability, which is a shame since it's this generation's gimmick, but Hydreigon isn't the only pseudo-legendary to not benefit from its generation's introduced thing. I'm looking at you, non-Mega Goodra.
What do you say fuck me for?
As always, I'm writing the script for this as I'm going through the game, so the commentary will consist mainly of my moment-to-moment thoughts on Hydreigon and Unova. With all that settled, let's get into the run. We start in my house, where I'm already waiting with Charon and a box of Pokemon. Bianca finally shows up and I get the first pick. I love Oshawott, so I've elected to replace it with Hydreigon so I don't have to fight it. With that, I'm thrust into battle against first Bianca and then against Charon, but their Pokemon both go down to a single Dragon Rage each. Before I leave, I make sure to check our starting stats and nature. This Hydreigon has a serious nature, so his stat growth will be neutral. As with everything about this Pokemon, that nature is just kinda, eh. Next, we go to the lab where Professor Juniper gives us the Pokedex and lets me nickname Hydreigon. I decide to call him Ishmael, and then have to sit through the catching tutorial before finally going to the next town. It's here where I have my first encounter with Team Plasma, and N. N claims he can hear Pokemon speak, and challenges me to a battle. Just like Charon and Bianca, his Purloin goes down to one Dragon Rage, winning another easy first rival fight. Since it's looking like this game has a few rivals, I'm going to do us all a favor and only mention major rival battles going forward. With 3 rivals, I can see this video being way too long if I mention every little encounter, like the one I have with Bianca right before Striaton, even though I literally just battled her at my house. If I'm dealing with little interruptions every time I try to enter or leave someplace, this is going to get really long really fast. I get to Striaton where I'm forced to battle Charon before the gym. This is the last rival battle I'll show, since I already said I wouldn't discuss the minor ones. I just want to get the point across that it's not even 20 minutes into the run, and I'm already sick of battling these people. This is our 5th rival fight. Anyway, I tear through the first gym's trainers and confront the leader. Cilantro leads with Lillipup, who takes a hard tri-attack before hitting Ishmael with a resisted bite. A Dragon Rage from Ishmael finishes Lillipup off, so it's out to Pansage next. I have Ishmael go for tri-attack, which luckily gets a freeze. Unluckily, Pansage immediately thaws out before setting up with Workup. I go for tri-attack again, hoping to soften him up for a Dragon Rage. It leaves Pansage deep in the yellow as it hits a resisted Vine Whip. Salon heals as Ishmael goes for Dragon Rage, but the potion keeps the Leafy Monkey in range for the kill, winning us the gym battle. That battle got us a TM for Workup, a move that raises the attack stats of the Pokemon that uses it. For a mixed attacker like Ishmael, this might be really good, so I'll keep it in mind going forward. Anyway, I get intercepted by a scientist named Fennel, and can't leave town until I help her with her research, which is annoying. Even more annoying is Team Plasma showing up and kicking Amana, because I guess you liberate Pokemon by beating the crap out of them. If that's how it works, then I liberate Team Plasma's goons and get to move on. After sitting through an explanation of playing online, after saying I did not want to sit through an explanation of playing online, I finally get to leave this place. I'm immediately forced to deal with yet more Team Plasma stuff after yet another rival battle, but am finally released, and am allowed to move on to Nacrene City, home of the second gym. Next up is Lenora, normal-type gym leader. She leads with Herdier, knocking Ishmael's attack down with Intimidate. I start firing away with Dragon Breath as Herdier just uses Leer. It ends up in red health, so Lenora heals as I have Ishmael use Headbutt. With the Headbutt damage, Dragon Breath now does enough damage for 2 more hits to take down the dog. Next is Watchog, who just misses 2 Hypnoses as Ishmael takes it to the red with Dragon Breath. I expect Lenora to heal, so I use Bite to replicate the battle against Herdier. She doesn't heal though, so we win another gym battle. As soon as the battle's over, we're interrupted by Team Plasma. It feels like this game is nothing but interruptions, from the rivals and from Team Plasma, but I'm co-opted into joining the battle after they steal the skull of the Dragonite. Nothing they do seems to have any relationship with liberating Pokemon, so I'm really confused, but Ishmael and I teach them the meaning of pain and return the skull to the museum. Afterwards, I head to Castelia City, home of the third gym. Here, I'll have to face off against Berg, the bug-type gym leader, and I'm actually pretty worried about this one. I don't have any moves that are super effective against bug Pokemon. Even the TM for Rock Tomb, the worst move I could use for this, is locked behind the gym battle. I've noticed that this game breaks from Pokemon tradition. Instead of having HMs limit your progression, now an annoying NPC will just stand somewhere and make you do something. To be fair, Emerald does that too. It's in Petalburg, forcing you to go to the gym since you have to see the catching tutorial and meet Wally, but it feels like this game does it everywhere. I get through the battle company and get ready to face off against the gym's trainers for more levels before trying to do Berg, but instead learn that Team Plasma is back again! Can I just play the game for 5 minutes without some crisis? Luckily, it doesn't take too much time before I'm back at the gym, getting ahead in life. I beat down the gym trainers and finally confront Berg. He leads with Whirlipede, who just goes down to a critical Dragon Breath from Ishmael. Next out is Dwebble, so I have Ishmael hit it with a hard crunch to break it sturdy. It retaliates with a Smackdown, and Berg heals on the next turn. A Dragon Breath from Ishmael takes it down anyway though, so Leavanny comes out last. Ishmael takes it to what seems to be exactly half health off of Dragon Breath, and it hits him with a String Shot, lowering his speed. The speed drop lets it nail Ishmael with a Struggle Bug on the next turn, lowering his special attack. I expect it to survive in the red thanks to the special attack drop, but Ishmael crits a second time, getting us the win. That was a surprisingly easy battle. Bug is one of Ishmael's few weaknesses, so I was expecting some trouble there, but instead he just crit his way through. I head north next to do some rival nonsense, some Team Plasma nonsense that gets me a bike, and start exploring Nimbasa City proper. Bianca drags me to the musical, and I'm worried I'll be forced to participate the same way they forced me to learn about the prop case, but luckily I get to leave. The generic, sad music that I'd always assumed was royalty-free because everyone uses it in videos plays while Bianca and her dad have a conversation that I don't care about, which gives me total tonal whiplash. But then it's off to the gym. At least I think it is, but then N shows up and takes me on the Ferris wheel where... What? Why would he tell me that? I've been fighting these guys all game. And what is this intimate-ass camera angle? What is happening? Weak and weary, I stumble my way into Elisa's gym for the battle. She leads with Emolga, who takes a hard Dragon Breath all the way to red health before hitting Ishmael back with a weak pursuit. Elisa keeps healing the poor squirrel as Ishmael keeps beating it back down, but she eventually runs out of potions, so the abused creature can finally rest. Next out is another Emolga, so Ishmael keeps firing away with Dragon Breath to take it down. Last is Zebstrika. It hits a resisted spark for a little damage, and then Crit Shmael returns to one-shot with Dragon Breath. I make it to Driftvale, home of one of Pokemon's most banking town themes, and prepare for the ground gym. I'm not particularly concerned about this one. Levitate means that there's no stab move that can hit us for most of his Pokemon, unless some of them have dual typings. On top of that, we've leveled up enough to learn Dragon Pulse, an incredible 90 base power Dragon type move. I'm expecting a really easy battle. The battle is, in fact, easy. First up is Clay's Krokorok, who goes down in one Dragon Pulse. Next is Excadrill, a ground steel type that actually walls Ishmael pretty hard. It responds to his first Dragon Pulse with a non-critical slash and then hits us hard with a Rock Slide. Luckily, Ishmael's third Dragon Pulse crits thanks to a held scope lens, so we escape mostly unscathed. Last out is Palpitoad, who gets one shot by Dragon Pulse for a straightforward win. I actually lost my first attempt at that battle thanks to Excadrill stacking Home Claws before spamming Rock Slide, but I swapped to the scope lens for our second go and won easily. If that didn't work, I was just going to teach Ishmael Work Up, so there's never any real possibility of us getting walled here. Anyway, that win got us the TM for Bulldoze, a great placeholder for Earthquake. I carve a path through Team Plasma and Chargestone Cave, come out clean on the other side, and prepare for the next gym battle in Mistralton. Unfortunately, Skyla has some business to attend to elsewhere, so I have to tag along to that. I miss when you could just go someplace, challenge the gym, and leave, you know? Anyway, I finish it without too much trouble and challenge the gym. I also totally missed that Ishmael gets Work Up as a level up move, so I decided to replace Headbutt. With a setup move, this should be pretty smooth sailing. After the OSHA violation that is this gym's cannon setup, I face off against Skyla. She leads with Swoobat, who starts smacking Ishmael with acrobatics as he sets up with 2 work-ups. It goes down to Crunch on the third turn, so next up is her Unpheasant, but one Dragon Pulse just takes it down. Last is Swanna, but one more Dragon Pulse is more than enough to get us a win. With the TM for acrobatics in hand, I get ready to follow up on a lead Skyla gave me about Team Plasma, because I can just have no peace in this life. As if to illustrate that point, I'm jump scared by N as soon as I step outside, but he leaves without a fight, so I get to get going. I make my way through Twist Mountain to Osiris, where I'll face off against the next gym. It's an ice gym, which worries me since it's one of Ishmael's weaknesses, but on the plus side, ice only resists itself, so I should at least be okay in terms of doing damage. I face off against Bryson for the 7th badge, and he leads with Vanillish. It hits Ishmael hard with a critical Frost Breath on the first turn, as he just sets up with a workup. A second workup is answered with Acid Armor, so on the next turn I have Ishmael one-shot it with Dragon Pulse. Next is Beartic, who also goes down to a single Dragon Pulse. Watching its health go down, I'm pretty sure I needed both workups for that, so I'm glad I risked the additional turn to set up. Last is Cryogonal, who, the fun fact, only has a base of 30 physical defense, and so goes down to a single Crunch, getting us the badge. I step outside and, for the second gym in a row, have to deal with Team Plasma waiting for me outside. I'm sent to the Dragon Spiral Tower, where N has reawakened Zekrom. He seems to want me to thwart him though, so he sends me to get the other legendary Reshiram. I head to the desert to grab my cool dragon and prepare to begin thwarting. It turns out that nothing is in the desert, but the second gym in Akreen City had a cool rock lying around that, oh hey, is also the Reshiram rock. I do some more traveling and arrive at Opelucid City, home of the final gym. Luckily, this is a Dragon-type gym, so it should be an easy sweep with Work Up and Dragon Pulse. Drayden leads with Fracture, and I send out Ishmael. We each take a turn to set up, Ishmael with Work Up and Fracture with Dragon Dance. As a side note, it's kinda weird that even though there are so many Dragon-type pseudos, I haven't been able to learn Dragon Dance with any of them. Anyway, on the next turn, Ishmael one-shots Fracture with the Dragon Pulse. After that, he one-shots Drotagon with Dragon Pulse. Last is Haxorus, who also goes down to a single Dragon Pulse. Easy win. Now it's off to the Pokemon League, but first I have to deal with Victory Road. I make it through without issue, so now it's just the Elite Four between us and the champion. I've looked at their teams beforehand, and I'm not too worried about any of them, except for one. Not only is Marshall the only trainer whose main type I don't resist or have an immunity to, Ishmael is actually weak to his fighting types. Throughout the whole run, random trainers have seriously messed Ishmael up with fighting type moves, so I'm pretty worried. I'll try to save him for last though, since these games let you pick the Elite Four's order. Here are Ishmael's stats before the Elite Four. Somehow, I've ended up with a higher physical attack stat than special, despite our base stat distribution and no dedicated EV training, which is pretty interesting. Anyway, I've taken some time to figure out the best strategy for each Elite Four member with what we have at our disposal, so with all of it settled, I'm ready to get started. First up is Caitlyn, a Psychic-type trainer and our best matchup. I hope Black Glasses should make this a brutally easy battle. I end up being right, as Ishmael ends up outspeeding all of her Pokemon and one-shotting with Crunch for just a total stomp. The second Elite Four member I decide to battle is Chantal, whose Ghost-type Pokemon give us our second best matchup. First out is her Kofagrigus, who gets one-shot by a Crunch from Ishmael. That makes our ability change from Levitate to Mummy, making Golurk a bit scarier. It now threatens with a super effective Brick Break and what's sure to be a hard Earthquake since we're no longer immune to ground moves. A Crunch from Ishmael thankfully one-shots, so the scariest part of the battle is over. Her Chandelure and Jellicent go down to one Crunch each as well, winning the battle. The only threat here was getting burned, so I'm glad it didn't end up happening since it would have cut Ishmael's attack and made this much more difficult. Third is Grimsley, so I replace Tri-Attack with Bulldoze and the black glasses with the scope lens and use a rare candy I forgot I had before we get started. Unfortunately, I try this dozens of times and lose every single attempt. Ishmael either gets hit hard by Scrafty and Crocodile because they can't seem to stop getting critical hits on him, or he gets hit with Sand Attack and whiffs every attack. Either way, by the time we get to Bisharp, we can't stack enough workups or get a crit to one-shot it. Bulldoze also activates its ability, Defiant, which buffs its attack when another stat is lowered, so it always finishes Ishmael off with an X-Scissor. Luckily, I can pick up the TM for Focus Blast really quickly and come back. Caitlyn and Chantal won't be an issue in any universe, so I'll be back after I get it. Okay, let's try this again. Scrafty is first out, but gets one-shot by a critical Focus Blast from Ishmael. Next is Crocodile, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. Ishmael misses 2 Focus Blasts in a row, which is terrifying because the move only has 5 PP, but connects with a third after taking 2 nasty Dragon Claws. Third is Bisharp, whose quad weakness to fighting guarantees a one-shot. Unfortunately, we only have one shot at this. Thankfully, a critical hit connects, getting us to his last Pokemon, a Liepard. It hits a priority fake out, so Ishmael flinches. On the next turn, he hits a Dragon Pulse to one-shot for a hard-earned victory that should have really never been that close. Last is Marshall, who's somehow less scary after all that Grimsley stuff. He leads with Throw, who takes an Acrobatics with just a bare sliver left. Throw retaliates with a Stone Edge that thankfully doesn't crit, and I have Ishmael set up with Workup as Marshall heals. On the next turn, Acrobatics is able to one-shot, and does the same to his Conkeldurr and Mienshao. Last is Sawk, who worries me because of his ability, Sturdy. I have Ishmael use Crunch because it'll break Sturdy without putting Sawk in healing range. Then I follow it up with Acrobatics after taking a Karate Chop, and we win on the first try. Last is the champion, Rengoku. I mean, Alder. Unfortunately, N is already here, because of course he is. And even worse, Team Plasma is here too, with... Is that an underground castle? How did they build that? And how did nobody notice? Where'd they even get the money for it? The thing is huge! What is happening in this game, man? Okay, so I'm very confused now. I beat up N and Getsus, but I had to beat N using Reshiram because I literally didn't have a choice. The game forced me to use Reshiram. Then I beat Getsus just using Ishmael, and then the credits started rolling. Does this mean I lose? I didn't get to beat Alder. I didn't even get to fight him. When do I enter the Hall of Fame? You know what? I hated this game, man. I'm not playing any more of it. I won, that's my decision. N cheated by using a legendary, so I get to cheat and use a legendary. That's it, I won, it's over. While the credits roll, let me talk a bit about Pokémon Black. If you couldn't already tell, I really did not like this game. I'm starting to understand why I've never seen anyone do runs of it. Not only does it feel really long to play, but the climax of the game forces you to violate whatever challenge you're doing. Even worse, it doesn't tell you that that's the end of the game. So I ended up just zoning out during the literal last fight because I was so ready to get on with it and do the champion battle. The nicest thing that I have to say about it is that it certainly was a Pokemon game. It just felt so incredibly crowded between Charon, Bianca, N, and Team Plasma. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting to see who would come out and harass me next. I said it in the beginning, too. I felt constantly interrupted on my journey. Even the Pokemon League got interrupted. I never felt like I had room to breathe between the mandatory Team Plasma fights, the mandatory rival fights, and almost every gym trainer being mandatory on top of all of that. Hell, the gym leaders always had some tasks they needed my help with too, so I never got to just play the game. Of the rivals, N was the only one I really liked, and that only happened at the end of the game since that's the only time he actually felt developed. Before that, he was just a weirdo in a hat. Charon has all the personality of a brick, and Bianca was just kind of annoying. In terms of the story, Team Plasma's goals never really aligned with their actions, which feels less like Getsus is a master manipulator, and more like sloppy writing. If your characters believe in liberating Pokemon, having them kick the shit out of a Pokemon in the middle of the woods is never going to be an action they should realistically take. Team Plasma was always very obviously about Getsus' control, and I picked that up just half paying attention. I tuned out of this one's story pretty quickly because I got burned out equally fast. 5 rival fights before the first gym is a nightmare. The pacing was apparent from the beginning. Go somewhere, battle someone, do some random side quest to open the gym, actually fight the gym leader, leave, and fight someone else, rinse and repeat. I never got to just go someplace, battle the gym, and leave. It felt like there was something cohesive going on in the first half of the game, but by the end it all fell apart for me and I felt nothing. This run took me 2 days of play to finish, and it was entirely because I just wanted it to be over. Even Hydreigon was kind of a mess. Ishmael never felt like he was dominating the game the way that other pseudo-legendaries have, and I'm not quite sure why. It may have been because of his moves. The only types that Dragon and Dark cover are Dragon, Ghost, and Psychic, so maybe not having super effective stab moves for 98% of battles took the wind out of my sails. It may also be because Hydreigon doesn't have a clear niche. For example, in the last video, Garchomp was always going to be a speedy physical sweeper because of its base stat distribution. Hydreigon doesn't really fit into a niche like that, so I never knew quite how to set Ishmael up for success. It was always one of my least favorite pseudo-legendary Pokemon, but I think this run may have placed it in solid last. There were things about this game that I liked, and believe me, I tried really hard to get into it, but I just couldn't. When the story feels like it's interrupting the game, you've got a bad story. At least that's how I feel. I can absolutely respect how ambitious it was, and there was a lot of potential here, but it just ended up feeling tedious and crowded. Luckily, I don't have to ever touch this game again, because this run was messy for a lot of reasons. If you, for some reason, enjoyed watching me experience this mess of a game that forced me to fail my own challenge run, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. You're also more than welcome to try to change my mind about this game in the comments, but I don't really see that happening. Next up is Pokémon X with just one Goodra. I was excited for that one since I've never played X or Y, but having experienced this game for the first time, my excitement has dwindled somewhat. Still, I'll try to be more optimistic by the time I start, so make sure to buckle up for that one. I'll probably take a day to just play God of War and cleanse my palate first, though. As always, I hope to see you in the next one, and thank you so much for watching.